evening, fellow warriors. I'm Javon of the Crimson Knight Fleet, and today we're going to be looking at a different prop. We're going to be moving ahead a generation and be looking at the Mek'leth. Back in August, I made 6 or 8 of these to donate to the keg table at Fan Expo, and I started off by making 2 of them. One where I just rounded over all the edges, and the other one where I actually took the time to sand down the sides on my belt sander and kind of give it a little bit more of a blade-like edge to it. Today we'll be making that one, but don't worry, I need to round over the edges of the handle anyways, so I'll be able to essentially show you how to do both the styles I did in one video. The nice thing about this style of making is at any point, if I get to a step that you don't feel like doing it, you can easily skip it because once you cut out the form, it looks like a mek'lith. So you could skip the whole sanding and shaping process and just go straight to painting. You could stain it instead of painting. You don't have to put the leather on the handle if you don't want to. There's a lot of flexibility with this one, like the last one, even though it is a simpler item to make. If you choose to forego a lot of the steps for the belt buckle, regardless of how many steps you choose to skip, you still have to cut out a form, cut out 6 circles or half balls and glue it all together. Where with this one, you cut out something that looks like a mek'lith. You could potentially just skip a lot of it and go straight to the painting, or you could add extra steps, like maybe you want to make it out of cardboard, so you layer a few things of cardboard together and then you shape it. It's up to you to figure out how you want to make it, but in this particular one, I'm going to be making it out of wood. I'm going to be making it for my brother because when he came over and he looked at my pile of mek'liths before I went to Fan Expo, the one that caught his eye was the one that I sanded down the edges to kind of give it more of a blade form. I would have done all of them the same way, it's just, it takes a while to sand it. So rounding over the edges with a router was the simple solution when I only had a week to make 6 more. The first step is I print out the template. When I'm resizing it, I'm looking to get it as long as I can before it starts to become 2 pages wide. This gets you to about 22 to 23 inches, and I forget where exactly I saw it, but when I was doing some research, it said that this blade was generally 24 inches long. I will be using wood. I'll be using plywood in particular. This has 2 benefits. One, with just a single piece of hardwood, you're going to run into potentially chipping on the corners, where this is several layers of wood layered, and ideally the grain is running in different directions. Ideally, this would make a piece of plywood of the same thickness of a hardwood stronger than it, because the grains are going in opposite directions. They wouldn't just necessarily all snap off. You still need to be careful when you're going around the edges, because I did have some chipping issues, but by the time I sanded it out, it was hard to notice that. And sometimes there's just holes in the plywood. I know some of the bat lifts I made that there were just straight up holes in them, and I just didn't have time to address them and fill them. So now that I got my form printed out, I'm going to cut around it and cut out the form exactly. I've had issues where I've left like an inch of the paper or half an inch, or I just like quickly cut it out just so I quickly cut out the form, and I don't take the time to get right to the lines. And I find when I get to the cutting stage, sometimes the paper might tear on you, and you'll find that your template might get ruined while you're doing it. So I'm going to glue the 3 pieces of paper together, and I'm going to glue it to the wood itself. I've tried a spray-on adhesive. It might be just the spray-on adhesive I was working, but I didn't have any luck with it. I bought a glue stick and I used that instead, and I had way more success with the glue stick than I ever did with the spray adhesive. You could use a scroll saw and maybe even a band saw for this, but I'm going to be using a jig saw with a scroll saw blade in it. Take the time when you're cutting on the inside of the handle and the hand guard to really follow the line even more than you do anywhere else. Don't quite get it other places. I can use the belt sander to get down. I don't have anything that will actually get into this crevice that will remove a lot of sand, or that will remove a lot of wood. Ideally, I would have an oscillating sanding table station, but I don't. So this is something that I'm going to have to take my time with and make sure I get it right. Now that it's cut out, I'm going to remove the paper, and I'm going to take the router with a roundover bit, and I'm just going to go around the handle of the mek'lith, and then I'm going to go on the inside of the handguard, because it's going to be hard to sand that down without with the belt sander. Again, I don't even know if this is something that I could pull off with an oscillating sand table, but I know I'm not going to pull it off with the belt sander, so I'm just going to do that to make my life a little bit easier. Now I move to the belt sander. First, I'm going to take note of how many layers of plywood there is. This one has an odd number, so I'm just going to leave one layer. Kind of tricky to describe what I'm doing here, but I kind of curve the blade across the sandpaper with the curve of the blade. So I'm kind of making a arcing motion while I'm going along the long part of the blade. The top here, it should be flat in the pictures, but I actually kind of like it with a little bit of a curve, so I added a curve to it when I was cutting it. And this part, I'm kind of doing the same thing, except I use the round part of the wheel. I find that was just a little bit easier to work with a shallower arc. So now that this is done, if you have damage at this point, if you have like cracked, chipped off pieces or just sections that you reveal were missing within the plywood, this would be a time to do wood fill if you chose to. I'm opting not to do that. I'm just going to leave it as it is, because to me that looks like it's had some damage, because I'm actually going to do some aging at the end of this before I seal it. So first, after the belt sanding is done, the sanding is not done. I'm going to be taking sandpaper to it and giving it with a high grit, and I will be sanding it over, trying to work out some of the bumps. I'm going to apply 2 layers of primer, and I'm going to sand in between each one. I just want to get a smooth finish, so I find that if I sand between each layer of paint leading up to the final coat, it'll give me a very smooth finish, especially with this metallic aluminum paint that I have from Rust-Oleum. So even after the first layer of the metallic stuff, I'm going to give it a light sanding again, and then after the final layers, the final big layer's done, I'm just going to check it quickly, and I might have to do a little bit of touch-up, maybe not. Time to blackwash it. Blackwashing is a form of aging, and basically I'm just going to water down some black acrylic paint. Some yellow would also be good if you want to give it a rusted look, but I'm not really interested in giving it a rusted look. I'm just going to paint this all on. I'm going to wipe it off with a rag, and all the crevices it's going to stick into, and that's just going to kind of give it an aged, used look, like it's been out in battle. I'm going to stay away from the front blade a little bit, because that would be the area that you would sharpen usually, so it and at this point you could add some paint. In the original mek'liths, I kind of experimented a little bit with spray painting a garbage bag, then I put my hand in it and I just put some prints on different blades. I didn't really like it, so I didn't get too much into it. You could use a spray can a little farther back than you normally would and give it like a red misting, or even water down a little bit of the acrylic red paint and maybe just splatter it on there and let it dry. It's kind of up to you. Have fun with it. Now I'm going to clear coat it. Now that it's clear coated, it's time to put a handle on it. This leather is actually the sleeves from a leather coat that I cut off for another cosplay. And I cut up in the strips and I used it for the other mek'liths. And all I'm doing here is I'm taking some Gorilla Glue and this little tiny clamp I got from the dollar store. It has swiveling edges, so it didn't seem to wreck my paint job last time, so I'm using it again. And I'm just going to put a line of Gorilla Glue in front of it, and then I'm just going to twist it around, and when it comes around back to the front, another line of glue, and I'm just going to keep on doing that, and the Gorilla Glue will hold it into place. And if I get through this and I need a second chunk, which happened with one of the other handles, I just grab the next section and I cut the edge to match that one, and I just glue it right next to it, and I continue the wrap. And the very last one, I just put a little bit of extra glue in there to make sure it's holding, because everything before is underneath something except for this one, which is on top. So I just put a little bit of extra glue to make sure it's there, and I clamp it down here too. And this needs 2 hours to dry. I'll probably let it dry overnight, to be honest. I'm not really in a hurry. At this time, I'm not going to see my brother for a week before I give it to him. So there you have it. You have your mek'lith. Or I have my mek'lith. If you followed along, you have yours too. Sorry about the abrupt ending, but I appear to have lost the last bit of my footage. What you're seeing on screen is a picture of my brother hanging the mek'lith on his office wall. And I think it turned out pretty well. If you try to make your own mek'lith, please send us your videos and post them on the Klingon Assault Group public page on Facebook and the member page as well. Tag the KEG podcast in them so we can see what they look like. And let us know what you would like us to do next time. Thank you for watching, and bye.